Reports indicate that North Korean troops sent to Russia are being prepared for deployment to the front lines, further escalating tensions with the international community. As Western nations respond urgently, concerns are growing that the Ukraine war could escalate into a broader international conflict. Now let's take some time to discuss this in detail with our expert guest. Chun In-bum, former Special Warfare Command General, is here with us to the studio. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
So the main question is, who are they actually, how they were selected, and what missions they were given? Some intelligence tells us that these are from the 11th Corps or Storm Corps, but we don't know about who they are. So how do you assess these troops?
So far, the information that we have indicate that they are from the 11th Corps, which is known by its nickname as the Storm Corps. These units, their main mission is to infiltrate into enemy territory by land, sea, or air, and strike at weak targets such as command and control, logistics, fires, and so forth, and to disrupt the operations of their foe. So these units, they're specialized in that. They can be categorized as either special forces, or light infantry. It's all different. But in this case, it seems by all indications that these troops are predominantly light infantry soldiers who are being deployed to the front in Russia and Ukraine.
Okay, so they're prepared for combat war. But it is true that Russia is facing repercussion and harsh criticism from the international community. Then this leads to the next question. Is Russia in such a dire situation to invite North Korean troops to their territory?
Yes.
How do you assess the current state of the war?
So wars are wars of will. And right now, 2025 is a critical period in the battles between the Russians and the Ukrainians. The criticality is because we will have a new US president, and in 2022, Putin mobilized about 300,000 soldiers. Right now, the casualty is more than 1,000 Russians every day. So the offensive operations in the Donetsk area seems like it's a success, but the Russians are paying a very high price. Next year, in the summer, Putin will be in a position where he must mobilize again. This time, the numbers could run to 600,000 to 900,000 men. This will cause a significant popularity problem within Russia. Right now, the Russians are recruiting 25,000 to 30,000 men a month, and they're sending them right to the front, which means they're not being trained well. So if you look at the quality of the soldiers that are now being deployed in the front, the 8,000 or 10,000 or even 3,000 North Korean soldiers who are probably well trained in the basics are going to be a good boost for the operations. Something added to that is that indications are that they're going to go into the Kursk area, and we'll have to see whether they'll be fighting a defensive operation or they'll be used as offensive troops.
Okay, that explains why Russia is showing a risk-expectant behavior these days. We also are hearing news from many sources that the North Korean troops being deployed are provided with Russian uniform and Russian equipment. But if that is true, then it means that they are not prepared well beforehand. So do you think that situation can have an impact on their warfighting capability? How do you assess the effectiveness of these troops?
You know, I don't agree with that assessment, because if the North Koreans were to be deployed as PLA, People's Liberation Army soldiers, that means the DPRK, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the North Koreans, would be at war with the Ukrainians. So instead of doing that, these North Koreans are incorporating themselves into the Russian military. So they'll be de facto fighting as combatants for the Russian military. And of course, they'll be supplied with Russian weapons. Recent reports say they're getting all the small arms that the Russians use, and oh, by the way, that's what the North Koreans use. So it will not be new equipment that these soldiers are unfamiliar with. These are weapons that they're very familiar with. And so it is not an indicator that these men are ill-trained. Rather, it's the opposite. It's the opposite that among all the reinforcements that Putin has been receiving for the past year, these North Koreans are probably the best trained and best equipped that is available to him.
Yeah, that is true. Let me tell you about the scale of this military assistance to Russia. Well, the National Intelligence Service reported that there will be 10,000 North Korean troops to be deployed by the end of December. How do you see this number? How do you see the impact of 10,000 troops having an impact on the battlefield? Do you think this can be a game changer or something else?
It's really hard to say because we don't know what the mission and role of the North Korean soldiers deployed to, we think, the Kursk area will be. Right now, the Russians are having an offensive in the Donetsk area, and in the Kursk area, it's mainly been a defensive operation. Will the North Koreans be deployed to maintain the defensive posture, or will the North Koreans be used to try to envelop the Ukrainians in Kursk to regain Kursk? That's an offensive operation. So we don't know that, and we'll have to see. Now, whether these North Koreans will be a game changer or not, that at the tactical level, that depends on how they perform. Nobody really knows. If they perform well, it's bad news for us. But right now what's happening is, because North Korea is involved in this conflict, the parameters or the scale of the war has just widened even to our neighborhood.
Okay. It's also been reported that these North Korean troops are in their late teens and early 20s. That means these are very young soldiers vulnerable to warfare. So it is also speculated that they can surrender or suffer from large-scale casualties. But these are young generation of the North Korean society. Do you think this situation can be detrimental to the North Korean regime in the long run?
Yes, so I don't think age has anything to do with it.
Okay.
In fact, whether you're young or old, it depends upon the person. My friends in the Ukraine military tell me that they're going to target the North Koreans, and I ask them to capture them and to be kind to them, because that's how you would be able to convince the North Koreans that we're not monsters. But anyway, that's just the natural process. The North Koreans are heavily indoctrinated. They are well motivated. Now, if they are killed, the Russians have a bad habit of not taking back their dead. There are hundreds of thousands of Russian dead bodies now refrigerated in Ukrainian facilities. So that's the reality. So if they're not taking back Russian bodies, probably the North Korean bodies will be left there as well. As for the wounded, the North Koreans have a long history of treating their wounded as war heroes. So although there's popular rumors that there's discontent within North Korean society, that could be very true, but whether this is going to be a destabilizing factor or not, we'll have to see how they are treated. I don't think Kim Jong-un is that foolish to send troops that he knows will be maimed and killed that might destabilize his society. I'm sure that he has somehow thought through this and made the decision to send his troops there.
But there may be some reasons why North Korea is making such a bold move. There can be some risks involved, and North Korea might be aware of that. But at At the same time, North Korea is expecting something from Russia. What kind of benefits do you think North Korea can gain from this the military support to Russia?
So it's bad enough that a dictatorship like North Korea is going to get food, fuel, and money.
Of course.
But now we're all concerned that they're going to get nuclear technology. But that's just half of it. The Russians have established a great electronic warfare capability through this experience with the Ukrainians. That kind of technology. The first-hand combat experience that the North Korean soldiers will be gaining, that's something that you can't buy. So all of this, not to mention the employment and deployment of drones, which is now the future of combat, these things are going to be very worrisome for us. And for the North Koreans, when somebody asks me that questions, I tell them they're going to get everything. I'm very concerned.
So this crisis cannot be limited to just one single reason. So let me ask you about the international opinion, because we're discussing this issue very seriously, and some European nations are calling for a countermeasure against it. And President Zelensky also mentioned that there should be more pressure on Russia and North Korea. So given all this situation, many are worried that this regional conflict can escalate into a global conflict. How do you assess this assessment?
Yeah, it's already escalated and spread. But let's all remember who started all of this, right? It wasn't us. And to add to this, I think that I'm being selfish, but we South Koreans, we need to test our weapons as well. So it's not just philanthropy that we need to send our weapons. We need to start with our defensive weapons, but also to test them to see how they operate in real battlefield conditions. So we need to send defensive weaponry, and we need to deploy observers to learn about what's the modern warfare is like right now.
Yes, of course, there can be some implications for South Korea as well. And that means that we have to watch closely the dynamics happening on the ground, and we also should emphasize the united cooperation among the like-minded countries in the international society. So thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and experts.
Thank you.
Thank you.